Only a few days after the FCC granted Starlink's request for authority to provide internet connection to moving vehicles, Starlink has released a new iteration of its internet satellite dish for boats, ships, and yachts. In its newest statement earlier today, SpaceX touted that their Starlink satellite internet service is tough enough to survive a rocket landing, and it demonstrated that with that rocket landing on Twitter for all to see. All right, for more of these tech headlines, we're joined by Efosa Aluyi, who is the head of investments at Sankore Global Investments. Efosa, thank you so much for joining us. Good afternoon. Well, looking at the NASDAQ in the United States, great to have you. It opened downward. How do you see tech stocks moving today? I think they were positive yesterday.
Yeah, so I think they will essentially just continue to, kind of go down or go negative today, really, just on the heels of the jobs report that you just quoted, coming in at 372K. The expectation was that the economy was going to create about 250K. So running at over 100K more than what was expected, essentially just alludes to the fact that the labor market remains really, really tight. And you also have to understand that the Federal Reserve has been on this hawkish binge, essentially trying to cool the economy. But this recent report that we have just seen today just alludes to the fact that the Fed probably needs to do more to try and loosen up that labor market. And, the tech sector has essentially borne the brunt of the rate hikes that we have seen. So what this jobs report portends is that we are all but likely to see a 75 basis points hike at the end of the month. So obviously the market is going to begin to price that in. And just coming off the backdrop of the fact that, the market had been on a 4-day winning streak, it's just basically some time to take some steam out of the market, really.
Thanks for that, Efosa. Twitter stock, I think it opened down 4.5%, $37.03. What do you make of the layoffs, this news of layoffs?
This is not an isolation. It's not something that's happening in isolation. It's not just to Twitter alone. Essentially, since the beginning of this year, you've had about 30,000 jobs, lost in the tech sector, particularly in the US. About 140 tech companies have had to, lay off staff. Like you mentioned, Twitter essentially put a pause on hiring about 2 months ago. And of course, once you put a pause on hiring, that talent acquisition team is certainly not optimized. So that's the reason they've cut that team by a third. So, but it is important to point out here that this is not peculiar to Twitter. You're seeing, some kind of slowdown, particularly within the tech sector. Like I highlighted, the tech sector will basically continue to bear the brunt of this, aggressive hike in interest rates. The tech sector, again, is the darling of the growth subsector of the stock market. And the growth sector basically just benefits from cheap money, heavy capital, and low interest rates. Once these interest rates start to rise, the future prospect or the future value of these companies start to drop. And that's what we're seeing. And I think that will basically take preponderance for the remainder of the year, really, as the Federal Reserve continues to hike those rates to try and rein in inflation and slow down growth in the economy.
Well, what do you make of Tesla's possible collaboration on camera modules with Samsung? Tesla stock, well, it was down earlier. I think it's up. It was down about 0.17%, but it does seem to be climbing now. It's a bit volatile. So what do you make of that collaboration with Tesla and Samsung?
Camera modules have become an essential part of automakers, really, and it's part of that push really into autonomous driving. That's what's happening. As a matter of fact, in 2020, most cars, had just about 2 camera modules on them. Today, they're having anywhere between 7 and 8. So clearly, it's a major push, towards that autonomous driving thing, and it's going to continue to rise. Really, shipments for camera modules are expected to rise to about 230 million globally this year. That's about a 30% increase from what we saw last year. And this sort of increase is actually forecast to, increase further by about 30% every year up until 2025. So this is a very strong one for Tesla as it continues to position itself within that mobility sector beyond, the EVs, also looking at autonomous driving. And it's certainly strong for Samsung. This is the unit within Samsung that supplies, the cameras for all the Samsung phones. It's also important to point out here that LG actually was the major supplier of these camera modules to Samsung, but to Tesla. But at a bid that happened earlier in the year, Samsung has essentially upstaged and edged out, LG. So what's going to happen going forward is that Samsung is going to be responsible for about 80% of the camera modules to Tesla, while LG will, supply about 20%. So this again would also play into the EV story for a lot of the automakers globally, and obviously will continue to expand, Samsung's market share in that area. But make no mistake, this is essentially a drive towards the autonomous driving, trend that we're likely to see in the years ahead.
Excellent. Amazon, what do you make of Amazon coming into Nigeria? I think April next year. It looks like they're on a hiring spree. The stock is, Amazon is also down right now. I mean, you've already said this. Tech stocks are down, so Amazon down as well. But what do you make of, their hiring spree in Nigeria?
Well, I mean, I think Nigeria is a big market, really, and it's important that, people that have got the structure, people who have had a proven track record, particularly in very developed markets, can come here and do that, So I think the market is here. Whether Amazon is going to be able to crack it, introduce some innovation into the market, really does remain to be seen. I mean, this move is essentially in preparation for, it's coming fully into the market next year, like you pointed out, So really exciting times. Really remains to be seen how this would certainly pan out.
And the flood wave issue in Kenya, I mean, we've shown their statements there. They've denied money laundering charges. How do you think this is going to play out? What do you make of it all?
Well, I mean, it's something that we just have to keep an eye on and wait and see, what the courts say. But I think the critical thing, that part of the statement that I've seen from prosecution is that, Flutterwave didn't have a license to be a payment service bank, and they've gone ahead to do that. Flutterwave, like you said, has put out a rebuttal and, kind of told its own side of the story. Really, at the end of the day, we just want to wait to see, what that judgment eventually comes out to be. I mean, the accounts are frozen in the interim while the investigation goes on. But I think, depending really on the outcome, but at least for now, doesn't exactly bode well for the tech ecosystem. It just puts people on that alert to exactly check what exactly is going on, try to figure out where true value and real value is. But at the end of the day, I think that, we just have to wait and see what the outcome really turns out to be.
Efosa Aluyi, head of investments at Sankofa Global Investments. Thank you so much for joining us to talk tech. We appreciate your insights. Appreciate it a lot.